Hello, Richard Walker here, and this is the sixth in a series of videos that I've done about the police, starting with the history, background of the police, how we ended up with two police forces, and whether, the two police forces, the conflict between them, as some people say, had a negative effect on the investigation into the Jack the Ripper crimes. And then I was looking at how they investigated particularly the double event. And actually, I didn't think, looking at it, that the division between the Metropolitan Police Force and the City of London Police Force, I didn't think it seemed to be causing any major problems. There were problems, but it wasn't simply because there were two separate police forces. And then in the last video, the fifth video, what I was looking at was the way in which the police back then kind of handled eyewitness evidence, and the way in which they treated eyewitness evidence, the way in which they kind of got carried away with it, really. And, mainly because, of course, lately we have discovered that eyewitness evidence is not all it's cracked up to be, or all it was cracked up to be. Can be dangerous. And what I was doing was looking at, again, September 30th, the night of the double event, the murders of Liz Stride and Kate Eddowes. And in particular, I was looking at the evidence around the death of Liz Stride, which happened in Berner Street. It's often said he moved his territory. It's the only murder that committed south of Whitechapel Road. So that's what I looked at in the last video. And in this video, I got so hooked on the evidence that I decided it was worth going in to look at the actual situation there. And in particular, PC, Police Constable William Smith's role in it, and what his evidence said. Because it's interesting. I think it's interesting anyway. So that's what I did. I took myself in and I recorded, and I thought, yeah, this will be okay. You'll get a flavour of London in the hustle and bustle. Well, wow. I'm sorry when you see it. Yeah, it's pretty intense because the background noise. I didn't have a sound man. I didn't have a cameraman, so not great. But I am leaving some of it in, just to give you a flavour, an atmosphere. But most of it I've just deleted. The sound I recorded, and I'm going to, sort of dub it, because it's just too distracting. You'll agree with that when you see the bits that have the traffic noise and the wind noise and all the rest of it. So that's what we're going to do. But first of all, maybe what I'll do is I'll take a look at the area. I've got my trusty little map somewhere. There we go. Yeah, this is great. So this is what the streets looked like in 1894. So we can look at that, and we can look at. I recorded myself going round, but I also recorded myself with using an app, to measure the distance and to get a timing. Police Constable William Smith said that his beat took him 25 minutes to half an hour. That was it. And he would complete his beat each time. So that's quite important in, understanding what was going on, is understanding William Smith, where he was and when he was. So let's have a look at some maps on that score. So the map starts with the Tower of London, right there at the bottom. And then as it spreads out, you can see on the left-hand half of the map, the City of London. And on the right-hand half, we've got the Whitechapel area. And if we close in, we can see this is the area that we are focused on. It's the area just south of Commercial Road. And then here I've highlighted in green the section of Berner Street where the murder happened, and there's a sort of green arrow pointing to a blob. And that's where the murder actually took place. That's where Liz Stride was discovered murdered. So this map shows the route that Police Constable William Smith took, and he began you can see in the top left-hand corner at the top of Gower's Walk. And then that was the route he would take. And as I say, a rectangle that he would walk. Half an hour. And you can see the murder took place right in the middle of his territory. And he wasn't the first police officer to discover the murder. So a little bit of pressure, I think, on PC William Smith. Okay, so we've got a map here. And you can see Polly Nichols up in the top right. She was the first victim, August 31st, 1888, in Bucks Row, there right next to Whitechapel Station, which is where I begin my Jack the Ripper tour. Annie Chapman, of course, murdered at Hanbury Street, September the 8th. Then the third victim, if you drop down below that red line that's kind of diagonally across, that's the line of Whitechapel Road. And so south of that, you can see Liz Stride. She was the third victim on September the 30th. And then just to the left of that, you can see a blue arrow, and that's Kate Eddowes. She was murdered on the same night, within less than an hour of the murder of Liz Stride. And you can see City of London Police were in charge of that one murder. Metropolitan Police, they had the other 4 to contend with. And you can see at the bottom there, Tower of London, to give you an idea of where we are. And Aldgate East Station right in the middle. And that's where I started. And so you'll see what I mean about the noise of traffic and the wind noise. I won't make you suffer too much of it, promise. Okay, so let's go to Aldgate East Station, which is where quite a few of the big tours started. Aldgate East Station. Okay, folks, Richard Walker here, and I'm standing right at the intersection of Commercial Street, which is, if I spin around, that's the street that's running behind me. It runs up to Spitalfields Market. There was a police station. One of the main police stations for Whitechapel was in Commercial Street. Where I am standing, which is really just a continuation of that street as it crosses Whitechapel High Street, that's the main road then. If I spin around, you'll see that the road running down behind me is Lehman Street. There's another police station there. And I'm here because I want to explore some of the evidence around the murder of Liz Stride. There's a lot of evidence and so much talk about it. Witness statements, some witnesses have become really important in the whole Jack the Ripper saga. And I want to see where they were standing, what they were doing, and in particular, what the beat policeman, Police Constable Smith, I want to check his route. I want to do that route, and you can do it with me. So here we are. This little cobbled street here, still cobbled, laid out. This is Gower's Walk. Gower's Walk, I'm still on Commercial Road. And this is the extent, or this is where PC Smith began his beat. He would start here and he would walk east from here. So he would walk straight down, let's see, he would walk straight down to east. And he would do a rectangle. He would walk taking the streets. And it was slightly under a mile. And he said the beat took between 25 and 30 minutes. So we're going to set out and I'm going to do the walk and see how we get on. I'm going to walk at a steady pace, at the pace that the police officer back then would be walking. I might be able to just speed this all up, increase the speed of it as we walk down here. In fact, what I'm going to do is just try putting it on time-lapse. Yes, well, you've had more than enough of that background noise, so we'll cut that out. So what we've been doing in the video is walking east along Commercial Road, and this is exactly what Police Constable William Smith was doing. He would walk east, and then he would walk south, and then he would walk back west, and then he would come back up to where he began. He said it took 25 minutes to half an hour, so we'll see. The street we're looking for, really, is Berner Street, because it was in Berner Street that the murder of Liz Stride took place. It's not called Berner Street anymore. The name got changed. Just as Bucks Road got changed to Durwood Street, Berner Street got changed to Enriquez Street. PC William Smith said that during the night he happened to be at Berner Street at 12:30. He said, "I was back again 25 minutes later at 1 o'clock, or half an hour later at 1 o'clock. And that was when he looked down and he saw a group of people down at the bottom end on the right. And that's what attracted his attention." So anyway, we'll continue east, as PC Smith would have done. And what we're coming to now, right here on this corner, where it says Dubai Aroma, that's the address is number 100 Commercial Road. And that is where the doctor who was first called at the corner of, there you are, Batty Street. And the assistant, apparently, he left immediately he was asked, and he ran down Batty Street. And then 4 minutes later, the doctor, Dr. Blackwell, he came, and he also. So they were very, very close to the murder site. Now we're almost at the eastern extremity already of his particular beat. And we turn right, we turn south, leaving Commercial Street, and we head down Christian Street. So that's what we're going to do. This was incredibly noisy, jackhammers and everything. So there we go. So we're going to walk down Christian Street, which is what he would have done. At the bottom, he would have, or not at the bottom, but when we get to Fairclough Street, as far as he was concerned, it was the bottom, because that's when he would turn west. But before he turned west along Fairclough Street, he would turn east. There was a short extension of Fairclough Street, which is not there anymore. There is now a sort of apartment building which blocks off Fairclough Street. But he had a short little, he would go down there, it's only about 40 or 50 yards, and then he would turn round and come back, and he would walk along Fairclough Street. So PC William Smith walks about 100 yards, so half the length of Fairclough Street that he has to go, and he gets to Berner Street, and this is where the murder took place. On the left, on the west side of Berner Street. Unfortunately, of course, all of that has been rebuilt. The wall is around the school, and the school arrived in 1910, so nothing original. But about where that gate is into the schoolyard, that is where there were a pair of gates in between two buildings, and that was where the murder, or the victim, Liz Stride, that's where she was discovered, 1 o'clock in the morning, lying there. Okay, let's turn around, and because we're interested in his beat here, so we'll turn and continue along Fairclough Street until we get to Backchurch Lane. Walk up Backchurch Lane until he got to Commercial Street, at the top end there, where he would turn left, turn west again, and end up right where he began, the route that Police Constable William Smith walked. And this is what the app revealed in terms of time taken and distance travelled. And it was a surprise to me. I'd read online about PC Smith's route, and it was said that it was covered in 25 minutes or half an hour, which is exactly what Police Constable William Smith said at the inquest. And I read that it was just under a mile. And this indicated, that he was walking at the speed that a beat policeman might well walk at. If you're walking a mile in just under half an hour, well, you're doing just under 2 miles an hour, which is okay. But my app shows that I didn't walk nearly a mile. I walked less than a kilometre. Yeah, so I was so surprised by this that I thought I'd better check that I've got the route right. So I looked online to see if anybody else had looked at this and whether they agreed with my understanding of what his route was. And on that wonderful resource that is casebook.org, I found that Gavin Bromley had investigated P.C. Smith's route for them. And this is what it showed. Pretty much exactly what my route was. Except he does show that little bit that I mentioned of Fairclough Street that goes from Christian Street to Grove Road. And I thought, I better do this again. And of course I should have included that. I couldn't because of course there was a building in the way. But what I did was I just walked about 40 or 50 yards further down Christian Street and then doubled back. So I'd covered the same amount of distance. And I came up with, well, you see, just half a mile, just barely over half a mile. I suppose it could be argued that on some occasions, as he walked down Fairclough Street or walked along Fairclough Street from Christian Street, he might take a dash up Batty Street and then down Berner Street. And then again, once he got to Fairclough Street, turn west and head to Backchurch Lane. But even if he did that, he's only adding another 250 yards to what he's doing. It's still well under a mile. It's still not much more than half a mile, certainly even less than 3/4 of a mile. So really, he's doing a little over 1 mile an hour. Now, we have to remember that by the time Police Constable William Smith arrived at this murder site, Louis Downshoots had arrived at 1 o'clock, he said. He had discovered, because his pony shied to one side, he discovered the body of Liz Stride lying in the dark against the wall on the right side as you enter that little alleyway. He had rushed indoors, got a light, brought some other people down from the club. They examined quickly and then raced off, a couple of them running up Berner Street to Commercial Road, and Louis and another colleague running east along Fairclough Street, hoping to find somebody there. And they'd regathered, they'd all got back and assembled. And 2 police officers had arrived. One of them had blown a whistle. All of this before P.C. Smith arrived. And when he did arrive, he said, I didn't hear anything. Didn't hear the police whistle. Now, nowhere on his beat can be more than maximum 350 yards from where the murder took place, from where the whistle was blown. And a police whistle, it was said, could be heard for over 900 yards. It's just part of what we need to examine in the next video. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope maybe I'll get to meet you on one of my Jack the Ripper tours, starting at Whitechapel Station, where it's a bit noisy, but after we leave Whitechapel Station, it's wonderfully quiet. Okay, thank you for listening.